English 201, week 14, part 3. I've hit, so just to review, so that's the make your 20 substantial discussion board comments. You got paper 1, 2, and 3 to write if you haven't written them already. If you have written them already, you can do revisions to bring the grades on those up. And you can, and then there's paper 4, which you should write, which is a chance to connect things we did in class to something you care about. The reason I do that is because I don't understand these teachers that teach literature as like a history course, where it's like when you learn about Shakespeare, you're learning about the kings, the person that was king and queen when Shakespeare was alive. I just don't. I mean, history is a good thing to learn, I guess, but like, I don't know what the point of school is if it doesn't have some connection to your actual life. So that's why I ask students in paper 4 to connect something we did in class to something in their actual life, because I think if you can make a link, I think a lot of students treat school like this weird game that you play to get a degree, and then when it's over, you never think about it again. But I feel like if school's going to have any point, it probably ought to connect to something in your life and actually matter to you. And so that's why I try to encourage students to connect something we did in class to something they actually care about, and not to plagiarize their papers by Googling, what should I compare The Tempest to? Like, don't do that. I don't know how to fucking tell you not to do that. Just don't do it. Do your own work. Because it's such a waste of time, because then you're turning in papers you didn't write, and I'm grading papers you didn't read, and it's just, God, it's such a waste of time. And like, how much time have we already wasted this year? Okay, so one of the most important lessons of this course that I thought I might return to on this, the last week of class, because I've been I think about these things all the time, so I thought of a new way to teach it, so I thought I would try that out now for fun. One of the most important points of this class is that most people, when they go to the movies or read a book or watch a TV show, they kind of treat the work of art like a window into another world, and to escape from this world into another world of fiction. And they treat and which is fine. I get it. I do that too. Everybody does that. It's okay. But they treat it like a window onto a fictional world. And then when they ask questions about the work of art, they tend to be questions. It's like they're talking about an alternate universe, or they're talking about a faraway place. So they go, why did that person make that decision? What would you do if you were in that situation? If you were in the zombie apocalypse, would you fight the zombies or would you run away? Do you see how these are summary questions? They're summarizing the story, or they're about the world of the story. It's about summary treats all the characters in the story as if they were real people. Um, which is, and that's the way, partly it's the way modern movies are really designed to work, to kind of, as much as possible, treat it like they're real people. And then people are like, whoa, could Captain America defeat Thanos? Which is a question about, and you're worried about, oh, I hope that guy doesn't die. He's my favorite character. I really like him. And when he dies, you feel like a friend of yours died, right? Like that's a way. It's not a bad way to do art, by the way. It's a perfectly, if you're, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that it's important also to talk about, when people do that, they tend to ignore some real important things. They tend to ignore the fact that somebody made this story. And they tend to ignore that there's audiences who watch it and get something out of it. And so what I want to say to one of the main lessons of my courses is to make sure that you're paying attention to both levels. The summary level is important. What happened? Why did that character do that? What's going on in their psychology? Othello's psychology is fascinating. If we treat him like a real person and analyze him like a therapist, I think there's a lot of interesting things to say about Othello, the character, and think about that. But it's also worth pointing out that somebody made this, and there's bigger questions we can ask. So it's not just, why did Othello kill Desdemona, and I wish he hadn't been so fast to kill her and to talk to her more. That's the kind of advice you give a friend of yours. Like, man, don't kill your girlfriend. Maybe talk to her first. Good advice. And a lot of, don't trust people. Like, that's that's kind of cynical, but I get it. Iago will certainly make you think that. But there's a whole other set of questions we can ask. Like, why do people write stories? Why do audiences consume stories in which fictional people suffer? Like, what's the point? What's the point of watching fake? Because the fictional people are fake. They're not real people. They're just made up. So they're like, you're literally, when you watch The Walking Dead, for example, you're watching imaginary people suffer. What's that for? Like, why does anybody do that ever? right? Why would you put people are crying over dead characters? Like, why? Well, it's not. I mean, it's not fun, or it is, or is it a twisted kind of fun? Like, what? Why is it that audiences want to see stories in which fictional people suffer? And people can be like, "Oh, Othello's so depressing. I would never want to. That's a terrible thing. I hated that movie, and I don't ever want to see anything like that again." But Othello's been around for hundreds of years, and people have cared about it for hundreds of years, and so they must be getting something out of it that's important to them. And also, people continue to make stories in which fictional people suffer, like The Walking Dead and horror movies and all kinds of things. This is a whole other set of questions. It has to do with theme, with art, with authors and audiences, and anyway, that's like there's a larger thing to talk about. So I think that's worth spending some time on because movies and TV shows and stories like that are so hypnotic. They're so beautifully made, and so well acted, and everybody's so good looking that it's real easy to forget that someone's making this. Why are they making it? And people are watching it. Why are they watching it? Why do people watch stories about serial killers all the time? It's a good question. Um, I actually haven't answered that. I can answer that question. Why do people watch stories? Why are people obsessed with stories about serial killers? I'll tell you why. It's because there's evil in the world. And serial killers, this is going to sound fucked up, serial killers make us feel better about the evil in the world. Why do serial killers make us feel better? Because there's evil in the world. And what a serial killer story says is there's evil in the world, and it's that guy over there. He's the evil in the world. Let's catch him and put him in jail or kill him. And then when that happens, you go, oh, there's evil in the world. And then you go, ah, oh, that's nice. They solved the problem of the evil in the world. And then you watch, but that feeling doesn't last, and so you need a new serial killer movie, and a new serial killer movie, and a new serial killer movie. Why doesn't that feeling last? Because the evil didn't go away in your world. It was nice to fantasize about a world where evil is just one dude, and if you catch him, the evil's over. Whereas the truth is, evil is like much sneakier than that. Evil doesn't exist in one guy. It exists a little bit in a lot of people, which is how you get a situation where like your grandma is like a really nice old lady, but she's also like kind of racist against Korean people, and like that's a lot harder to deal. That's an evil that is a lot harder to deal with than a serial killer. Because with a serial killer, you're like, we hate that guy. He's the worst. Let's kill him. And that's like an easy, I mean, it seems a difficult solution, but it's like an easy solution in a way psychologically to be like, that guy sucks. Let's kill him. But if you have a grandma, if your grandmother, you really like her and she's a really nice old lady and she makes the best cookies, but also she doesn't like Korean people, see, it's like that's a harder problem to solve. And it's a much harder thing to make a movie about. Because how do you fix an 80-year-old lady who thinks Korean people are terrible? Like, like that's racism. It's not, people think racism is just people yelling the N-word at people on the street, but like there's other sneakier kinds of racism that's like much harder to deal with. And anyway, that's people like serial killer stories because it says the evil's over there. It's just in that one guy. Let's catch that guy. All right, this is going well. So what I want to do, and I think it's important to think about that larger level, that why are stories made and what do audiences get out of them, and that's theme. That's theme, by the way. When someone makes a story, usually they're trying to communicate a theme or an idea to the audience, and the audience will take an idea or theme from the story. Not always the same thing. Sometimes someone will try to make something with a theme, and the audience comes away with a completely different theme. I think I probably gave examples of this already, but anyway, I know I did in the first week of class. So, okay, I'm going to pick this up in the next video.